Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to the Aurum podcast. Today, the last Saturday of 2020, the last Saturday of January of 2022. And to be actually very accurate, this is a webinar. So, karibuni sana to this webinar. I'm your host. My name is Anthony Kuria, and I have here a panel of what do I call them? Titans in their field, and I'm so glad that they could be able to join us. Now, before I introduce them, let me explain what this webinar is all about. This webinar by Aurum, the Aurum webinar today is hosted by Aurum Consultants, which is a HR and risk advisory specialist, and our focus is in helping companies build winning teams, because without winning teams, there is nothing much you can achieve. Now, right up to what we are discussing today, I have with me my co host and the in house HR consultant, Zipporah Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, viewers. Good morning, Anthony, Tom, and Martha.
Yes. And the second panelist is our favorite HR specialist. Whenever tukikuwa na kizungumkuti, we knock at Martha's door to give us added wisdom. So, welcome, Martha Thuku.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, viewers.
Now, and thirdly, we have our guest today, the one we brought in to give us from the corporate world what happens, Mr. Tom Kibet. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, viewers, and thank you for having me.
Now, even as I continue, Martha, probably, let me start with you. You could probably tell our viewers and listeners what exactly you do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thank you, Tony, for the opportunity. My name is Martha Thuku. Currently, I'm the HR and Admin Manager in LVCT Health. And I like talking about my organization because we are a dynamic organization. We do great things, including supporting the government in the fight against HIV/AIDS. And one of the areas we drive on is mental health issues. And maybe those who have been following have been introducing our organization's mental health issues, especially this time of COVID, where so many people have gone through many mental issues, gender violence issues. So please, if your organization needs support, LBCT Health is a place to go, and you can reach me even through this forum, through Aurum Consultants. You can get my contact, and I'll link you up with able people who can support you during this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. Indeed, that is a very noble vocation that you are in. Mr. Tom Kibet, kindly tell us more about yourself, what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Tony. I'm Tom Kibet. I work for an organization called Nuru International Kenya as the Chief Operating Officer. We work in 3 counties, that is in Migori, Homa Bay, and Baringo. And our main work is to empower farmers to fight extreme poverty through the cooperative strategy. So basically what we do is building resilience of smallholder agricultural communities in remote rural Kenya. And that is the main goal for the organization as we continue scaling up. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Tom. That's a noble that's a noble space where you are in, We all think about being here in Nairobi. Some people think that Nairobi is Kenya, that kama tuna traffic jam Nairobi, all of Kenya is affected. So it's good to know that in this vast, beautiful country of ours, we have people who are operating in those remote places, ensuring that farmers there are also, getting the necessary support. And as a chief operating officer, I believe you will really be able to bring the nitty-gritty of this subject that we're about to discuss today. And today, to our viewers, as you know, this week we've been discussing lots in regards to performance management. and how performance management can be used as a tool to enable corporates, NGOs, business entities find a way to, to maximize their productivity. And now, as we were discussing issues to do with performance management uh, this month, we broached all manner of subjects. We broached goal setting. We broached other issues regarding how to, keep performance running up and running. Today, we want to talk about something called performance reviews and appraisals. You know, many times for those of us who have been in the corporate space long enough, performance appraisal was a time where it was not very exciting for some of us. Even for our listeners, I'm sure many of them have good and bad stories to give when it comes to performance appraisals. If you are not in the good books with your immediate supervisor, then and they even let you know beforehand where tutapatana. We will meet during appraisal. We will meet during, when it becomes something that it's not quite meant to be. But that is not the way it ought to be, because here we want to discuss how should management use this particular tool of reviews and appraisals to help staff. And as we were, as I was thinking about today's particular topic, we say that it's only as effective as the understanding of what is expected of the employee. If employees understand the employer's expectation, if today I understand what my employer expects of me, this can potentially lead to greater productivity and the ability to focus on what we ought to achieve or what we ought to improve on. So now, let me start with the HR experts here, because they are the ones who sometimes design these programs in conjunction, obviously, with line managers. But I want to hear from them. How do we make performance management effective? I've spoken from, as I said, Martha and Zippy. I was once an employee where I would hear performance appraisal, and I know if I have a bad boss, like sasa mimi, wacha nitie changu maji, because now yes, I will see manifestations of displeasure. But from you, ladies, from a HR perspective, Zippy, let me start with you, and then we go to Martha. How can we make performance management effective rather than being inefficient?
Thank you, Anthony. I want to believe during our discussions we've been able to demystify this subject of performance management, because it's never supposed to be something we are afraid of. It's never supposed to be something when we hear performance reviews, we start wondering, what will happen after these reviews. And one of the things we must do is look at the process from beginning to the end, even before we start implementing performance management. Because if we don't look at the whole process, then what happens will not be effective. And what might happen will be ticking a box to fulfill all righteousness. And at the end of the day, it will not be achieving the objective we intended for. I always say when we're doing performance management, we must have an objective we're looking at achieving. So let's not do this for the purpose of ticking a box. Sometimes when our bosses say, I want everyone to be, put under performance, we want to see reviews done, sometimes we rush into it and we just doing it to fulfill our righteousness or to make our bosses happy or to say we actually did, which is always what I call ticking the box. So when we are looking at the process, we also need to have the employee in mind, and we need to make sure they understand why are we doing this, how are they coming into the whole process, and how is it beneficial for them. Because I believe when they understand why it's important for them and how it benefits them, then it becomes very easy for them to buy in and for them to be able to go through the process without feeling like this is a process that is being brought to victimize us or to fire us. Because sometimes that is how employees look at it. And they look at it from that perspective because they lack the information. No one probably is going out all the way to explain to them why we really need to do this. And not just for the organization, for them. Why is it important for them? How is it going to help them in their career growth? So for us to make it effective, I think we need to look at it from, the beginning to the end, the whole process. And the other thing that I would mention to make it effective, is important for us to know, how do we communicate? How do we communicate this process to our employees? And I always say we need to look at the 7 C's of communication. Are we clear? Are we concise? Are we, giving all the information that the employee is expecting to get, so that when we are communicating, we are not giving ambiguous information to employees. We are not giving confusing information to the employee. We are very clear about what the expectations are. So that is one of the things I must say that we need to put into consideration when we're looking at having an effective process. The other thing I would say is training. Before you implement this process, and even when you're implementing, it's important for you to do constant trainings to employees. And the reason we do trainings is, number one, for them to understand the process, to understand why we're doing it and how do we do it. Because if we don't train it, then we might not get the results we are expecting. Now, we don't train when we are beginning to implement the process, then say, we are good, we don't need to retrain. I think it's important for us to constantly look at training and retraining our employees. And when you're doing performance reviews properly, then you will realize, you will notice where the gaps are for employees. And you're able to pick up those gaps and, create training programs that would be suitable for each employee. And that would help them actually improve in their performance and achieve the objectives that you're looking for. So those are some of the things I would say we need to look at. And I know Mother has a lot to add on. And before I give it to Mother, the other thing, and we have talked about this, is helping the employees set clear goals. And how do they set clear goals? I've seen situations where we say everyone needs to set their goals. And sometimes when I have a client who tells me we need to set performance management, people need to set their goals, my first question is always, do we have the organization objectives? Have we set them? And it's interesting because I've realized sometimes we are telling employees to set, and as CEOs, we have not set the objectives for the organization. We have not set the goals for the organization. So basically, we're expecting employees to do what we are not doing. And one of the things I would want us to talk today about is, who is responsible to implement this? Because I believe as leaders, we need to lead from the front. So if I'm going to tell my employees to set their goals, I need to be able to set the organizational objectives. I need to set my own objectives as the CEO, and I need to work towards achieving the same. The other day, I had a conversation with one of our team members, and we're talking about performance management, because it's the beginning of the year and we've been going through the process. And I said I have my own goals, and she was very surprised. As a CEO, I have my own goals that I have to work towards. And it's important for us to even make the employees understand, I have my own goals I'm working towards. I need to be very transparent. These are my goals that I'm working towards, and I need to work and show them that I'm achieving them, because if I'm not achieving them, then I'm not going to expect them to achieve their own goals. So for me, I would look at it from that perspective.
Wow, 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 wow. That is a very clear perspective. Martha, what's the others? What can you add on to that?
Okay, thanks, Tony. So first and foremost, we have learned that performance management, and in a nutshell, I'll just summarize it in a nutshell, it is setting expectations for work performance and planning ways to meet those expectations. The other thing we need to remember, and maybe I'm talking to maybe organizations that do not have performance management in place, it comes from the strategy. So there's nothing you can do. You cannot start having performance management if you don't have a strategy. And a strategy gives the objectives of why we are here as an organization. What is it we are working towards? What do we want to achieve? And out of that, then you are able to come up with some performance targets, and you are able to come up with the expectation standards of how you are going to meet those objectives. Now, and that's what is brought down to every employee of the organization. So as ZP has said, that needs to be very clear. Now, if you are a new organization, you don't have this in place, you can't just wake up and decide, performance management. So you need buy-in from the word go, and maybe our CEO or representative here will let us know, because you can't just put it through the throat of people. So
Yes.
you need first to bring buy-in, and bringing buy-in is seeking opinion of various people in your organization, even to the lowest level, and sensitizing them exactly what it's about, and Zippy has said how will they benefit. So
Mm.
so everyone will work towards something they know they are going to benefit. And it's so important for people to understand performance management helps you kind of define why you wake up every morning. You
Mm.
know, there's a way you can wake up in the morning, you go to work, you go back home, and at the end of the day, you can't point out clearly what did I achieve today.
Mm.
So performance management and appraisal, that whole process, it helps you define these things and how you are going to achieve them. And that makes you happy, because then you also know your contribution towards the bigger picture. And the bigger
Mm.
picture is the strategy of the overall organization. So everything is being derived from that organization. And how that another way of making it effective is helping staff know that you don't know everything. No one
Yes.
has knowledge. So it's through this performance management. When you are doing your goals, you realize, oh, I'm missing a skill. So you need to set
Mm.
training plans, how you're going to identify that gap in skills, and
Yes.
then how you're going to implement the training required. So
Mm.
the other thing is always to be transparent. As Zippy has said, it is not a tool to use against people. It is
Mm.
a tool that is helping your organization grow and achieve its objective. And one of the things that you can do, you can even let them give suggestions of whomever does well. I mean, according to the performance management, when we do the reviews and the appraisals, what do you think we should do to that person? So
Mm.
that can come with a contribution of what can happen to that person. Because then you are going to encourage healthy competition in the
Mm.
organization. It is okay to have healthy competition when someone knows, hey, if I do well, I'm going to be rewarded by this. And then once you do
Mm.
that and you have gotten buy-in, so ensure you have clear goals for every person. So
Mm.
these goals, then this person needs to sign for them. That
Mhm.
within this, let me call it the year of performance, this is what I'm going to do for the organization. And the manager will explain the standards of how to do that. So that even when you are coming to the reviews at the end of that financial year, then
Yes.
that person owns those goals and is able to say, by the way, this is what I signed to do, and this is
Mm.
what I have done. So you kind of
Mm.
measure the actuals from the set goals. And
Mhm.
you need to measure those success. Then even as the year is going, there needs to be ongoing communication. We said that
Mm.
last time. You can't wake up at the end of the year, you are appraising someone, and you are telling them, unakumbuka January what you did. That if there is something you did that you can't have surprises at the end of the conversations. Yeah,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
has to be ongoing communication, manager with the staff. So that's
Mm.
how you can say you have an effective appraisal. So it is not a surprise, it is not something to punish people. You can't use it as your tool to punish people or to refuse to add people's salary. If
Yes.
I have not performed, let the book sing, let the book stop. This is what you planned, this is what you have achieved. Are you in
Mm.
agreement? We sign, and what I get is what I achieved. So that transparency is very important. The ongoing communication is very important. And mostly, as we said, setting objectives and goals and defining the measures of achieving them is also very important to have an effective appraisal system. Thank you.
Wow, wow, Martha, you should be lecturing somewhere on this topic in some college because you have basically broken it down. If there is a chief executive listening here, another COO somewhere like Tom out there who is listening to us, you have heard exactly how it's supposed to be done. Strategy at the top, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down to individual line managers and the employees. Where, as Martha said, there are no gifts and surprises in December about what happened in January. Yeah, there's place for gifts and surprises, but not in performance appraisals, at least from how Martha has explained to us. Zippy, there's something you wanted to add to
It's
what Martha
something
has
I've
said.
picked from Martha on standards. And one of the things, and it's interesting, sometimes we'll hear business executives talking about our standards are high, or we want to set high standards and all that. And the question is always, what standard, the standard you're putting in place is going to be based on what? What is the basis of that? And one of the things, as we are looking at setting these standards, one of the things with performance management, if it's going to be effective, we need to be very consistent, because where there is no consistency, the truth is the process will fail. Now, consistency in terms of how you do it, consistency in terms of how you reward people who are performing, consistency in how you reprimand people who are not performing. There needs to be that consistency, and people understand, if I perform well, this is what is likely to happen. I will be appreciated, I will be recognized, all those things. I will probably end up getting a promotion depending on what level you're in. And the other thing, when you're looking at an effective system, we need to look at how do we create growth opportunities for our people, because people want to see, how am I growing in my career? Yes, I'm performing year in, year out. Am I going to be stagnated at one place, or are there going to be opportunities for me to grow? Sometimes perhaps it's not a position that is even available. Sometimes it's added responsibilities that will be given to you, and probably your job title is changed, and it comes maybe with a little bit of a better pack. And we need to be creative how we look at it, so that people are not feeling, yes, I'm performing, but I'm stagnated. Remember what I said earlier, we need to show the employee what is the value for them to do these performance reviews, for them to embrace performance management. What is in it for them? What advantage are they getting? What benefits are they drawing out of this process? So we need to look at it and see, how are we creating opportunities for growth for them? And opportunities for growth do not necessarily mean promotions. Sometimes it means I have added responsibilities to you. Probably your job title has changed a little bit, and you have maybe gotten a better pay because of all that you're doing. So I think that's what I wanted to add on to making this process more effective.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tom, from where you sit, ndio tunaweza kupatiana stories. We can give a lot of stories from a HR perspective. You are the one who is operating, who is bringing this thing to the ground. From your perspective, how do you make performance management effective?
Thank you, Tony. I think the panelists have really put a lot into it, and maybe I just put on in terms of the experience part. What is really important is the culture, and there's an old adage that says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." So that is very key. You have to come up with culture, and how do you develop a culture in an organization? This comes through the values, the mission, the goal, the objectives of the organization. Once you have these drawn out very clearly, then it becomes a way of developing the goals for the employees and enabling them to have certain expectations. And probably as the head of the organization or the CEO of the organization, the culture that you portray usually is very key. And I would say that the way you hold people accountable is a way that enable the team to perform. You don't necessarily need to hold people accountable in such a way that they comply to the things that have been set out. but you hold them accountable in a way that they are committed to their roles and their duties. So commitment, once they have that commitment in what they're doing, once they know this is something that is part of me and part of the organization to reach a greater height, then you see better performance from the team. The other aspect is basically how do you behave? Do you really own up to the expectations that you've drawn, the expectation that you've set? So you'd give people goals and targets at the end of the day, but do you really call it in? Do you really follow up what you set out in the first place? Or it reaches a time you forget about it, you don't even have check-in meetings. So what has really worked for us is by ensuring that we have a weekly check-in meeting whereby you have a one-on-one session with your direct report, your managers, ensuring that you're keeping track of what they do. And basically, by having an one-on-one session, what I mean is, what did a manager do, probably, or what did an employee do that worked well? What was he proud of? Yeah, what really came out well, and what did he achieve that he feels that was exemplary, and what were the lessons that he learned that week that will enable other employees to improve on their performances. What were the major decisions? Are there decisions that maybe a manager made or an employee made that could probably affect the organization moving forward? So these are kind of things that, as managers, as CEOs, as chief operating officers, we have to look into it in a day-to-day basis to ensure that we are able to move the performance of the employees to the next level. The other thing is, basically, when you are talking about the consequences, are these consequences basically emotional? Are you drawing to the emotional aspect of the employee? Or does it have a social consequence? When you talk about consequences, and most of the time, most people go wrong about this because they draw into the emotional aspect rather than the social aspect. When you look into the social aspect is, what happens if I lose this job? What happens if I don't do my things? Am I affecting my fellow colleague, or is my fellow colleague affecting myself? How do we go about this? So drawing into the social aspect brings a lot of perspective into the employee's kind of view, rather than feeling like maybe I'm being attacked because you're drawing into the emotional aspect. You're not doing this, you should do this. And are you sitting with this particular staff, setting the objectives every day? Or when you're setting the targets, are you able to really show the person that these are the things that they are supposed to do so that they achieve the overall objective of the organization? So I would say those are the few kind of, I could go on and on, but I would say those are the
Yes.
areas that basically have brought a lot of impact. That is having regular check-in meetings. Here, at times at the enterprise side, we call them the weekly operational reviews, whereby all the key performance indicators are put into a dashboard, whereby everybody can see who is performing, who is dragging behind, and how can the team draw into these KPIs to help the other person that probably is lagging behind. Maybe part of the team could be having a solution to the problem. So having these weekly operation reviews whereby you have charts, it could be red when the performance is not so good. It could be yellow when it is midway, and when they're hitting their targets, it could be green, so that you visualize what everybody is doing and how they could really draw into each other's strength to move their performance into a greater height. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Tom, you've actually even answered the question I was about to ask next. I was about to ask next, and you've really brought it down. That culture eats strategy for breakfast. That basically you may have all the strategies that you have as a business person, but if your culture is wrong, if your culture is weak, if your culture is what's the word, is at odds with what you're planning to do, then you will be basically, it's like driving on empty. Attempting to drive a vehicle with little or no gasoline. Hakutaenda mahali, you will stall in the middle of the road. And we will wonder, we had great plans, what has stalled? And culture is the fuel, as it were, that drive the company forward. And I like, the way you've described, that, yes, Martha, you put it very well, that you have got to have strategy. And indeed, if you don't have strategies, like drive, it's like what's the one? They say if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have a plan where you're going, you don't know when you'll reach there. You've got to have a plan on how to go where you're going. You're going to Mombasa, we will go by road, we'll go by SGR, we'll go by bike. Sawa, you strategize, mteka mafuta mahali fulani, tutaanza kuenda. But hiyo mafuta ndio tunaita culture. But if you do not put culture into this thing, that yes, this is how we do it, this is how as a team we are energizing ourselves to go, then all your performance appraisal businesses, all your other things that you add up, really will not be going very far if you have not set a way to be able to do these things. And to our viewers and listeners, you can join into this conversation. You are very welcome to join into this conversation. You can send your email, your comments via what? Via Facebook. Yes, we are live on Facebook. You can send in on your comments or questions, or if you think we have said something that did not tickle your fancy, kindly. Yeah, we could say something here, and somebody, Tom, one of your colleagues sends and says, Tom, that statement you have unleashed should be said this way and not that way. So, if something you'd like to us to comment on, an explanation, a clarification, kindly feel free to send your comments. We are live. Would love to interact with them, even as you go. Now, I think Zippy, you had a question for Tom. There's something you wanted to find out from Tom. Kindly air it so that our viewers can also listen to it.
Thank you, Tony. I think I would want to hear from Tom how they get buy-in and cultivate the performance culture for their teams. And as he answers that, probably can also loop in how do they make sure the teams don't get fatigued by the process and drop the ball.
Yes, Tom, that's a good question. Let's hear your view.
Yeah, that is a very good question, Zippy. Thank you. How we cultivate or how do we get buy-in from our employees? Basically, during the designing stage of every year, before commencement of each and every year, we do designing. We sit with all the employees and set our targets out. So you have to set your targets from the beginning, drawn from the vision, the mission of the organization, and the objectives that you have. So each and every member would come, and we have a place called Design Lab, where we sit all of us, and everybody projects what he intends to achieve at the end of the year. If somebody wants to sandbagging, that is just like putting a target that is below, that is easily achievable. The rest of the members would push each other. So you push each other to draw into a better target that would push you to a greater height. So when you sit with a team, have the targets achieved, set the targets out, and everybody contributes to the ways they think that these things would be achieved, brings a lot of buy-in. At the same time, we have what we call sharing from the members at the, you have several cadres in the organization. So what you do, you have to go to the even the lower cadre, get their buy-in. What we call grandparenting meeting is like you're going, you're not going to your parents, but your grandparents are going now to your children and seeing how they can help them to achieve their things. So grandparenting meeting, you meet, have a discussion with everybody is brought into the process. In the process, you go down to the level whereby even a person that just does um, cleaning, would say, of the management of the compound and what they think, what are the values that these people add up into the overall organization strategy. So everybody is hard, everybody's communication is hard and discussed, and at the end of the day it brings up that buy-in because everybody feels that they're contributing to a bigger objective, they're contributing to the mission, overall mission of the organization, and it is inclusive. I think that is the right word. It's an inclusive approach that helps everybody to set the targets. And then why our people don't drop the ball is because we vary our management styles, and even the appraisal styles. You ensure that there's that varied approach. You don't stick to one approach. If one is not working, vary the approach in such a way that you could be having a weekly check-in, and probably that might be taxing to the staff. So how do you ensure that everybody feels comfortable and are able to contribute to the vision and mission of the organization? You could be having a weekly check-in. It could be twice a week. Maybe that is too taxing. So it should be a varied approach that enables people to have that. The other way is to ensure that you have employees' wellness in mind. Everybody wants to feel appreciated and taken care of. So if you're not looking into the wellness of your staff, then the performance would not be that good. They would feel that maybe you are a slave driver, you don't want really to think what they're feeling. You don't want to really get empathize with their situation. So you have also to empathize with their situation, listen to them, make them feel heard, and at the same time address those issues that they have. There's also what we call there's usually like grapevine conversation. You cannot avoid that in any organization. So the grapevine conversation contributes to people even releasing their emotions, and there are spaces that staff would feel comfortable airing their views. And at the end of the day, as management, you'll be able to get those views, and probably if there are things that would enable you to improve the performance, you'd act on them. So allowing open communication, having an open door policy enables the organization to have high performing individuals. And finally, obviously, there has to be what we call time offs, ensuring that if you find people are becoming jittery, agitated, yeah, get them go for leave, get them rest. You could even have team building exercises that enable this team to bond and release exhaustion that they had. And that one, even when they're having the team building exercises, some great ideas come that improves the performance of the organization. Thank you. Over to you, Tom.
Wow. Wow, Tom. That's what we call being on the ground. Yeah? That is what we call being a COO. There is a theory and there is a practice. You know, I like the point that you have brought up. Wow. Tom, brother, hata wewe, I think soon should be teaching. You should be lecturing somewhere, especially to fellow CEO, because you have said some things that I've found very powerful. That, you know, social inclusivity in performance management. That from the cleaner to the watchman to the person, the clerk, you know, the guy who is doing his stuff, some of them have some very brilliant ideas that if as a manager if as management you're able to grasp, then you see performance coming up. I like the fact that you talked about varying your approach. You know, not many, not many people like this business of being flexible. Sorry to say, because you're thinking, what do you mean varying our approach? See, we want to achieve a certain target. So why can't we all flow? Why is weekly meetings a problem? You know. But I like the fact that you've brought that some people, people are different. God created us differently. There are those who once a week, it's okay. Somebody else feels very crowded. I remember Tom, a place where I worked. I used to dread those weekly meetings because when you're in sales and hiyo wiki hauja produce chochote, the next sales meeting you're thinking, good, now what will I say? So varying the approach can also work, and issues to do with employee wellness and the grapevine. I like that's practical. I like the practicability of how you approach it out, because at the end of the day, it's about as a leader, you're looking for ways that you can vary your approach to be able to reach the goal that you gave yourself for, the goal of meeting personal and corporate targets. Now, Martha, let me come back to you. Tell me, what are the challenges? Somebody will look and say, okay, Tom has given us the practical aspect, and it sounds all rosy and cool, yeah, culture, put culture first, strategy, blah, blah, blah. You've done all that, but there are still challenges. I believe there are still challenges in employee performance. Could you give us a few of the challenges that come when it comes to managing employee performance? You have all the charts. Yeah, people are meeting quarterly, blah blah blah. Everything is done. But what are those challenges that inevitably do pop up, that our listeners and our viewers who are business people, who are top managers, probably they are running in their head, they're thinking, do these people know that there are challenges with these things? Tell us a few that you have met out there.
Thank you, Tony. And yes, so I like what Beth said about culture, and even in all the forums we have been, we have realized culture is a driver for everything. I like that quote. I wrote it down. I wrote something like culture. Eat
Culture eats
strategy
breakfast.
for breakfast.
Yes, yes.
I'll never forget that one. So everything is about culture, Tony, because you'll find there could be organizations who are good on paper. So all these things Kibet has talked about, they are on paper, but the actual on the ground is the other way around, and it's
Yes.
because of the culture. And remember, we said everything starts from the top.
True.
So whatever the COO, now that you are here, COO, whatever the CEO is,
Yes.
that's what you will find in the ground. Even if the books are right, what he practices day to day, that is what is in the ground. So if I was to go to Nuru today, what will I find? So I don't, when I say I don't want to see the books, I want to hear from the implementers in the ground. You know, that project officer at Tibet, what will they say? The data officer, a data somewhere. What will they say? Because the manager who is managing those people will only operate as per what is happening, not what is in paper. So that culture is one of the barriers of effective managing performance, because
Okay.
the way you do things here is different from what you have put in paper. You have put in paper
Yes.
for auditor, but that's not how you do things here. The other thing is the standards you have set, and that is the values. So
Yes.
he talked about values as a way to help this performance appraisal system. but are they still on paper, or have you trained your people on the
Mm.
values of the organization? How do
Yes.
we do things here? With things here, and that's why you find this thing. Why people need HR managers is because they are able to drive these things. You are not
Yes.
able, as a top person, you're not able to drive these things. E.g., who is going to train all the staff on the values of the organization?
Mm.
And they
True.
need to sing them. They need to sing them. So even when they are doing their appraisals, they know that this is the way we do things here. These are the
Mm-hmm.
standards here. When we are doing this here, we don't cook data, we give
Yes.
actuals. When we are doing this here, we don't have sexual harassment. We don't harass. The manager will not harass you,
Mm.
or refuse to give you a good score because you refuse to take him for coffee. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you see those values, they cannot be unsaid. They have to be spoken. They have to be taught.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that if
Yes.
someone complains, Kibet asked them to take them for dinner and they refused, that person should have a leeway to complain somewhere, and
Mm.
action needs to be done. So those are the
Yes.
small nitty-gritties. And then now when we
Mm-hmm.
come now to the real performance appraisal,
Yes.
like I said, and Kibet has said, those check-in meetings are so important because
Mm.
then you won't have to pile up things.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, when you are learning about marriages and all, women are told they store things and they bring them there. Tell me what you did to me 10 years ago.
Yes.
No, it can't happen like that. That a manager is piling up things
Mm.
and then bringing them to the final appraisal. So the
Mm.
check-in meetings are so important, and I like the way they are doing it weekly because you can never
Mm-hmm.
forget something weekly. But if you
Yes.
remind me something I did a year ago, I'll wonder which one is that? I thought I was
Mm-hmm.
good all along. You get?
Mm. Correct.
So, so those weekly check-ins are so important. If there are no weekly check-ins, the performance appraisal will not be effective. Uh,
Mm.
the other thing is, what are they called? Um, Relationships. You don't
Mm-hmm.
bring relationships to up. You know how I feel about you, Tony. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if I think
Yes.
I don't like your glasses, and that's
Yes.
how I'm going to evaluate you, because every time I see you, I just see those glasses that I don't like.
Yes. Yes. That's
Uh,
true.
so my perception towards you should not come into an appraisal
Mm. Perceptions.
process.
Yes. Yes.
Perceptions are not good, and even if let's say we had an argument that was outside work,
Yes.
that should not come into the way I work. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So the issues of and that's why I said that the values are so important, because once you educate them, if you
Mm.
say this organization is zero tolerance to this, to this, to this, those things that are zero tolerance should never come into appraisal. So
Mm.
we work in our culture as an African country. I don't know why it looks like men have leeway as far as women are concerned,
Mm-hmm.
and you can ask girls out, and you know na akikataa unamwambia tukutane kwa appraisal. Those things should not come here. You can't kutana
Yes.
kwa appraisal because someone refused to go out for coffee with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why
Mm-hmm.
we say at the beginning, those things need to be documented.
Mm-hmm.
Martha, this is what you documented. You know what I like about their organization? They actually display it.
Yes.
Someone says, this is what I'm going to achieve for the organization.
Yes.
So by the end, they are not having arguments. It is
No.
A and B.
Yes.
So those other personal, interpersonal issues, perceptions cannot come in now because it has
Yes.
nothing to do with what I presented in the
Mm.
board that day. So
Yes.
those are the things that come into play: perceptions, interpersonal issues, uh,
Yes.
a manager wanting to domineer.
Mm-hmm.
So it is this way and no other way. So you
Yes.
don't give the employee the how they can perform. So if
Yes.
they don't do it your way, at the end of the day, is the objective at the end to be met.
Yes.
And there
Yes.
are some managers who really have what should be done in their mind, but they never even articulate it. But they are expecting that staff to know that, this is how I should do it. And that is not good. Just, that's why we have mouths. Voice it out. I would like this to happen. Is
Yes.
it, are you able to, would there be a challenge why this should
Yes.
not happen? Then the other thing
Yes.
he talked about grapevine. I like
Uh-huh.
grapevine. But let me tell you, if you go too much on grapevine, it can
Mm-hmm.
be subjective
Mm-hmm.
because that you can be getting information from someone who doesn't like me.
Uh-huh.
If you evaluate me with that, and
Yes.
without you having your own mind concerning me,
Yes.
then that it will be a challenge. That appraisal will not be effective. So
Mm-hmm.
it's good to look at grapevine, but also for me, I like, okay, this is what I have had. Let me learn Martha but
Mm-hmm.
from my angle. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll find there are some dots that will tick, and maybe not
Mm-hmm.
everything will tick.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that grapevine is fine, but let it not be the 80% that you are relying on. To do
Yes.
that. Please let it be
Yes.
10%. When it's 80%, you have failed as a manager.
Yeah, that is
So
true.
yeah, so those are some of the challenges we experienced, Tony. I'm sure Zippy
Yes.
has more, and I'll leave that opportunity for her to add. Thank you.
Yes, Zippy, what's your add on the issue of challenges?
Wow, I think these guys have articulated the issues very well. And let me speak from a point of, especially when we are implementing a new system, because I've dealt with a lot of organizations when we are trying to implement the performance management and for the first time. And I'm seeing a lot of organizations also embracing performance management. And one of the challenges I've seen, number one, is when the process is not defined from beginning to the end, you face a lot of resistance from the employees. And simply, number one, because they don't understand why all of a sudden the management has decided we need to do performance management. Yet we've been here for 20 years. This has never been an issue.
Mm,
We've been fine. Why are we doing
yes,
performance reviews? What for?
yes.
And this
Mm,
is where you start hearing people saying they're doing this because they want to fire us. But is a
yes.
question, are we doing performance management to fire people? And again, this is a question I would pose even to employers. What is your objective? Why are you doing this performance management? Because it needs to be objective. And
Yes.
I like what Mother was sharing, because we need to be very objective when we come to appraisals and reviews. We need to leave personal differences outside the door and be very factual when we are dealing with performance management. Because a lot
Mm,
of times we are using, and Thomas alluded to this, we are using emotions. We are coming and, we are carrying all these things to the room, and we are not looking at this person from purely a performance perspective. Are they able to do the job? What we agreed at the beginning of the year, are they able to do? Have they been able to achieve? If they've achieved, what is a percentage they've achieved? If there have been challenges, what have been the challenges? As their HOD or as their manager, what have I done to contribute to their non-performance? Because sometimes as managers, we actually contribute towards our employees' non-performance. Yet we come to the performance table and we actually accuse them of not performing. So we also need to look at it from a very objective perspective. And I like
yes.
what Tom said, how they do it, doing the check-in meetings and varying the approach. When this is not working, can we consider another approach that is going to work for this employee? Because sometimes
Mm,
when we say it's all cast on stone, then sometimes it doesn't work. And that's why we start finding resistance, or we start finding the managers actually start ticking the box. Because this is another actually challenge where managers will do reviews to tick the box and make the bosses happy. But the question is, as an organization, are we achieving the overall objective of doing this whole process? Because it's costly, is time consuming. At the end of the day, it needs to achieve that objective. The other thing is when there's lack of clear organization objectives, and Mother articulated this very well when she said we need to start from a strategy. But again, a lot of businesses, you find they don't even have that strategy, you know. So where do you start if you don't have the strategy? You know, can you start by having at least a few simple objectives or goals people can work towards, rather than saying we are going to do evaluations? What are we basing it on? So again, this is another challenge I have seen, and this is a failure actually not on the employee, but a failure from the management to set clear objectives that we need to follow. The other challenge I've seen is where job descriptions are not aligned. So you will find there's lack of alignment. We have a lot of expectations. We are making a lot of assumptions along the way. Then when we come to the evaluations, we start accusations. And I always say that does not help the organization. We need to look at what will work, what is not working, and come up with solutions. Because if we don't do that, then at the end of the day, I don't think as an organization we'll be able to achieve.
Wow, wow, wow. You know, Zip, you've just brought in something, and this one I'll speak directly to our audience who are people who are entrepreneurs. You know, we've heard here that culture eats strategy for breakfast. But if you don't even have a strategy and you don't have an idea of your culture, then you're setting out to do business. And you probably have quite a number of staff. You have you're running your business, it could be anything, could be a car wash, could be you are doing supplies, could be you're doing manufacturing, could be you're a school, could be you're a restaurant. Do you have a strategy? So if you have placed yourself a strategy, then the how to do it is create an environment. What Tom was describing as culture, create an environment of how to achieve whatever to achieve. And also, Tom, there's something you brought in there which Martha also defined. This grapevine, you know, some people think grapevine you dark. But really, grapevine is not udaku, if you think about it. I read somewhere in a book, I think it was a Harvard Business Review, or somewhere that, you know, those conversations people have on the wakienda kukunywa chai, on break, when they're taking a break, an off, they're putting for themselves, a coffee, or they're probably at the water dispenser collecting, but then they're exchanging ideas. But say, do you know, I went the other day, you can hear, let's say it's two sales guys, they're having a conversation. Do you know, I went to that place in industrial area. Can you imagine they have no X products, and that is what we have here? I spoke to the manager there, and they told me, you know what? This is what we need. We need to present a proposal, see how it works. And that time, these two individuals are speaking over the coffee, whatever, probably a cup of tea, or on the water dispenser. That they're having 2-3 conversations. The manager is like, by the way, probably that time it's Martha who is talking to somebody. By the way, do you know that client of yours? Do you know that they have a branch in Mombasa, and that branch is saying they do not have the things that we supply? That is grapevine. You get me? That is grapevine. So if it's somebody who is struggling to hit their targets, and here over a cup of coffee or over tea over lunchtime, they're discussing with somebody on how there's a new client. I got a referral. By the way, let me give you my business. Let me give you this business card. I spoke to this client, XYZ. I spoke to this client, XYZ, and they're saying they have a branch in Mombasa. They have nothing. They need you to go there and do ABCD. Through grapevine, coffee, lunch, water dispenser, people having conversations that enable their peers. If you carry it out well, it's enabling their peers to be able either to meet their targets or to see hidden dangers. Probably you think you're about to, HR, somebody, Martha can come to you and tell you, hey, Martha, I saw so and so you are doing recruitment. And I saw, is that guy called Tony Courier? Yeah. He came for what interview did he come for? He came for this and that job. I know that guy. He did XYZ in this other company. There were issues there. Just be careful about that guy. You see, the grapevine enables, if it is used well, it can enable people communicate well, apart from now the usual, what we all know, the disastrous gossip. And culture can create that kind of disastrous gossip. But it can also be a very positive way to boost performance. Because here you are, your colleagues, contemporaries in one company, you're probably in different departments or you're in one department discussing issues that each one of you is either giving information or receiving information or building up somebody, telling them, look, there's this job. Martha, you could be with somebody whom you have been noticing is struggling in one department, and they said they're very good in something else. And you're telling them, hey, by the way, very soon, next week, next month, you've always said that you want to do marketing, and you're struggling with operations. Next month, we are doing some, we'll be sending out, applications for marketers. Probably you could, and you're discussing that over, say, at the water dispenser, you're told, Yebu, make sure, man, you make that call to be able to get. So that's how I thought it's good to clarify how Grapevine works, even because Grapevine works also for entrepreneurs, CEOs. You meet somewhere for a cup of coffee and people are giving you tips, Zippy, go and see that client over there. They really need XYZ of what you're doing. So Grapevine is that informal discussion, informal, fruitful discussions that people have either within the company or outside the company to boost each other's, performance, if you could call it that way. Now, as we come to a close, can see our time is really going, but I still had one more point to bring. Tom, I'll bring this to you. Sitting where you have been sitting in that position at Nuru, what would you advise managers and even companies, firms, trying to implement a performance culture, or trying to implement a performance culture, or they are trying to implement performance management? From your experience, what would you advise? Now, using the Grapevine example, if somebody came to you wakati mnakutana huko nje and told you, hey Tom, man, I'm really struggling with I heard the other day some people in head office telling me to implement performance management in my division. Can you give me ideas on how I could do it? How would you reply to somebody of that kind?
Thank you, Tony. When it comes to implementing performance management, it starts from the top. You have to hold yourself accountable to it. As I told you earlier, that we do designing, I would say co-creation with the
Yes.
management. So what you do is you sit down with the team and you
Yes.
come up with those performance management goals. And definitely where you start from would be yourself, that these are the targets, the overall targets for the organizations. And this is what I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 to enable us to go to the next level. Then what assistance do you need from the rest of the team so that now you're able to achieve that? So it's broken down into individual goals that will build up into the overall goal or the target at the end of the day. So once it is that very inclusive and all the team members are involved, then it becomes a bit, I would say, they take in and they're able to relate to what you're talking when it comes to performance management. And the most important thing is aligning, I think ZP has mentioned this, aligning their job description with also the targets and what they're expected to do. So once that is aligned, then somebody would even see his or her job description and says, okay, these are the things I'm expected to do. As well, they double up to be my performance management at the end of the day. So that person will be reminded by the job description. At the same time, visualization is key, as I had mentioned earlier, that when you have a dashboard and the people are able to see and you're able to relate to them on a weekly or a monthly basis, you're able to sit with them and come up with better approaches. It enables the team to succeed. And these performances are also very key in the way they are developed. You have to understand your employees' strengths and match them with what you want them to perform. An area that they're excelling, ensure that their roles are also in areas that they're able to excel. Don't give them roles that are also antagonistic to the way this person works. So it should be something that is it's kind of, they have a synergy. It's a positive into the way that person is wired, because you have to understand your staff, the way they are wired, how they approach things, so that when you're setting the goals, they're able to really run away with it and ensure that it's achieved within a certain timelines. And specifically when setting these goals, they have to be the word that always is there is what we call smart. They have to be specific. Yeah. They have to be specific. They have to be really measurable. At the same time, are they attainable? Are they things that are within the reach of the staff, or are these things that are out of the blue? Maybe they need rocket science to be able to achieve it. So is it realistic? Yeah, is it
Yes.
realistic? And always, people forget what we call the timelines. Timelines are very key. At what time? At, is it at the end of the month, or is it a day's assignment that they're able to achieve a certain task? When you look at all that, it boils down to the discipline of the manager, of the CEO, of whoever is leading the organization. So if you are disciplined enough that you're able to look into things in terms of the timeliness, in terms of seeing through that resilience from the
Yes.
management, that you're able also to find out from your people, are they really progressing? What is ailing them that they're not able to succeed?
Yes.
Would propel your organization to really having a very good performance management approach. Because when you're able to have one-on-one with your staff, and basically even just having that one open door policy that other members of the organization could tell you that maybe if you could consider this approach, then things would work out, then you would find having a high performing team. That is really important, because creativity comes from listening to people. At the same time, there is motivation and direct focus that is all ingrained in the discipline and the approach that we all look forward to. At times, you might, like this era of, I would say, having calls like remotely, like the way we're having this discussion, because COVID brought a new perspective of how things are handled. It is critical that when we are having also discussions as an organization, I don't know if it's only me, but at times I find that you'd find that you have calls probably as early as 7, and it could go as late as 8, 9 in the evening. And at the same
Wow.
time, you need maybe time to do operational things, administrative duties. You see, maybe you're taxing your staff too much. They don't even have the time to do other things. So performance management, the person that is reporting to you should be able to tell you that at this time these things will not work. So let's have this call at this particular time, so that I'm able even also to do other tasks. What are the priorities? Yeah. How are they ranked in your organization? So that goal and clarity of everything that is done within the organization has to be crystal clear to everybody. So I would say those are very critical things. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. You've spoken from a, I mean, if you're receiving calls from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., uh, from where you sit, yeah, I believe you know what it means to, to be able to handle, uh, you to be able to handle, questions that are coming up, issues that need to be sorted out. Now, there is something that has come up. Somebody, Madam, I don't know whether it's a madam or Mr. Moni has said, how can you explain to us a situation where the manager's level of education is lower, though with much high experience compared to the staff who is super mastered. You know, you basically what Moni is asking. If you have an employee who has more academic qualifications than his superior, when it comes to performance management, Martha, let me hear from Martha, because I'm sure bef- before you went to do I'm sure you've seen it. Before you did your masters, I'm sure there were people you're managing who are doing doctorates, and here you are with your undergraduate degree. How do you how would you answer money on that?
Hey, that's a good question, Moni.
Hmm.
And because we have seen it a lot,
Hmm.
um, right now in Kenya, most people are really going for those academics. They are either degree holders or
Hmm.
master's holders. They're even
Hmm.
going to PhD.
Hmm.
And then they come to this organization, they find their manager did a diploma.
Oh yes.
And then the manager has grown through the ranks. It's very important to know that whatever qualification, if that person is your manager, they are your manager.
Yep.
And that organization has made them a manager because they have something to offer.
Mm.
So your academic background may not necessarily mean that you are a good manager.
Mm.
And the conflict should not come unless the manager is not able to really articulate what needs
Mm.
to be done.
Mm. That's true.
So for me, as far as management is concerned, I always lean from the good word that says that leaders are made from God. So
Mm.
that position, the positioning, it has nothing to do with me and my qualifications.
Mm.
That manager can even be younger than me.
Yes.
So those should not come to play, even as we are talking about performance appraisal. What we are talking about is documented process. Whether
Mm.
you have a diploma, degree, PhD, what did you agree with the organization through your manager that you're going to achieve
Mm.
for the
Yes.
organization,
Yes.
irrespective of the qualifications of that manager? There's something
Mm.
you agreed at the beginning of the financial year of that organization, and did
Yes.
you deliver?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you work with that attitude that you are more qualified than your manager, you will never learn even from what that manager has to offer. Let me
Mm.
tell you, all this gold
Yes.
experience kind of builds, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So that manager has gone through things
Yes.
uh,
That's true.
that cannot be taught in a classroom,
Absolutely.
especially as far as organizational setups are concerned.
Mm.
So I think you bring in a good aspect,
Yes.
and that aspect is valuable, but also attitudes come to play, perceptions come to play. But
Yes.
really, as long as the organization has put that person as a manager, there must be something he has to offer. For me, it always makes me feel like it is my part to find out something I can learn from this person. And there's an organization I worked for like that. I felt this my manager they have brought. I felt like I'm hired.
Yeah.
And initially, I had an attitude towards my manager because I kept on feeling, "Ah, what she's telling me, no, it can't be." But then one day I made a decision because I don't know everything. Let me learn something from this person. And let
Mm.
me tell you, the day I made that decision, do you know, I learned so much. There's some
Mm.
things that I was not strong at in the HR
Mm.
area.
Mm.
And I decided to learn. I went and looked at my manager's approach of things, how the letters are being done. I mean, concerning that situation. Do you know,
Mm-hmm.
I grew myself in that area of HR that I didn't like.
Mhm.
Okay, I never told my manager, by the way, I have learned a lot, but I can tell you now, those things I practice because I learned from my manager, who I thought is superior than them. And so
Mm.
it hit me. Attitudes come to play, especially if you're more learned or if
Mhm.
if you think you're more learned, it comes to play. And it's so important that you don't dwell on that. You just dwell on the fact that this is my manager, this is what we have agreed, and this is what I'm supposed to do, and have I done it? And that is the question that will come at the end. Thanks.
Wow, wow. Moni, I hope your question has been answered. That indeed, it's the issue is your attitude as a perceptibly more educated person, super mastered, as you have put it, and you're dealing with a diploma level manager. There is something that you can learn. You know, Martha, I remember one time when I was in the banking industry, I was under my 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 supervisor was those old school characters, those who had been in the bank in the 70s and the 80s. People who had, people who computer was like giving them, I don't know, it's like taking them to NASA to learn how to take off with a jet using a computer. But this mzee once they told me, young man, used to call me young man. Young man, do you know what to do if a bank, if we got thugs attacking here? I looked at him and told, you wrestle them down. He laughed at me and told me, wewe ni mjinga sana. When the next time we are attacked by bank robbers, this is how you do it. This is how you behave. And he was speaking from experience. He was not giving me theory. And he gave me a story of the way sometime banks came, thugs came, made them to lie down, did whatever they did. And he explained, because he had been through such an experience a few times, things that I could not have learned in school, things that I would not have been taught on how to handle that particular risk, that particular situation, that you can only learn it by going through it. How do you protect the monies that are in the strong room from being, what are the tactics to use to prevent damage from, you know, becoming so big when such an event comes. That's something you can't learn. That's not something you can learn from a master's or PhD degree. Yes, you can be taught out there if you are studying risk and issues like that. But the practice of it can only come from somebody who has been there. So, yeah, being super mastered does not give you a head start, especially in the workplace. Now,
The
Zippy,
other, let me add something, Tony. The other
yes,
aspect comes in, like you
mm,
could have been in a job,
yes,
and then the organization decides to employ a manager
mm-hmm,
in that area, and maybe you are even acting, but they
mm-hmm,
advertise, they do interviews, and you didn't pass. So a new
mm-hmm,
person comes. Then you find also there's a struggle there.
mm,
There's a struggle there because, first of all, it's you to induct this person.
mm-hmm. Oh my,
And show them what needs to be done. And you know, when you are new, you struggle.
sure.
So you are keeping on referring to this person. Oh, how should
Mm,
I do A? How should I do B? And you know, you end up thinking, I'm good at this, and this person is supposed to be my manager.
mm-hmm,
So you don't accept them from your heart. And
mm,
every time it's like a tug of war
mm,
when they are coming, when you're when that person is giving you duties to do, you don't value them anymore, because
mm,
actually what they have been doing, they have been referring to you,
mm,
and maybe you are even in the same interviews that you
mm-hmm,
pass, someone else passed. So it's such a thin line, and you have to have a meeting with yourself
mm-hmm,
and decide, this is the manager that I have been given. So if you
mm,
don't make that decision from your heart, you will never
mm-hmm,
accept that manager. When Grapevine is done, you will always be speaking bad about that manager and how they don't know what they are doing. And that's why,
mm,
Tony, I like Grapevine when like you put it positively. But when
Yes.
it's negative, punitive, just because someone is not fitting in with the new manager, and maybe that manager has one paper less than you.
Yes.
So all those dynamics comes to play. So it comes
Mm.
down to a personal decision that this
Mm.
is the manager I have been given. I'll work with this my manager and wait for the day God will promote you.
Yes.
Because then God saw you that day when all
Yes.
that those decisions were being made. And also
Yes.
God has a plan for where He will take you. So if you can settle that in your heart, you will be able to work with a
Yes.
manager who doesn't have a master's and you have. You'll be able to work with them because you have a place that you're going. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you for that. You know, people sweat for the masters. That's why they value them so much. Huh? You go and get a master's from Strathmore, you'll be feeling like a god walking around in Nairobi. Do you not have a master's from Strathmore University? Na hapa mmenipatia mtu wa diploma. Anyway, Zippy, can you tell us what's your final word as we come to a close? Looks like we can't quite hear you.
Sorry about that. I'm saying as I give my final word, let me just touch a bit on what Mother said and on the question from Moni. And I've seen this a lot when we are doing recruitment, where you're recruiting for a certain position, and someone has a PhD or they have a master's, but they have zero experience. Now, this person comes in and they have a lot of expectations in terms of the positions they should hold, what they should be paid. And what we fail to understand is the person who has been placed in the organization as a manager, they've probably gone through a very long process of getting to where they are. They probably started from a very lower cadre and they have grown to a level of being a manager. And like Mother said, old is gold. One of the things I really value about people who have been in organizations for long is they understand a lot about the organization and they have a lot to offer that someone new who has a lot of qualifications may not be able to offer. However, that is not to say the people who have been in the organization for long, you've been made a manager, is for you to stay, at that level. Because these young people are coming, they are super mastered, they will challenge our authority. So how do we make sure we also balance the equation so that, when they are querying, I mean, how come we have people in leadership and they don't have the desired qualifications? And this is where performance management again comes to play. How are we encouraging our people to go back to school? How are we encouraging them to develop themselves? Because if we don't do that, then you will always find there's that conflict. So, okay, I found this person as a manager. I've been here for 5 years. They are still my manager. I have experience. I am still more qualified. They are still, my manager. Then how do we balance that out? And I think
Yes.
when we start doing job grading and job grouping, then you start seeing things starting to align themselves. And I would encourage organizations to start putting some of these processes in place. And we talk about this a lot when we're talking about the processes organizations need to, to put in place. When
Yes.
you group, the jobs, when you make sure, there's, grading, then it's very clear for you to be in this position. These are the qualifications that are desired. This is experience that is desired, and this is what you're going to earn or the benefits. That way, actually, it equalizes very easily. So when you realize I am a manager and I don't have the desired qualifications, what happens? I'll be forced to go back to school. And I'm actually seeing us doing this a lot with some of the organizations, where we have implemented performance management and we have rolled out job grouping and job grading, and we have done trainings for the staff. So I know, yes, I am the manager, but I am not at the level where I'm supposed to be as the part of the process. So what happens is you're given time, a year or 2 years, and you're told you have all this time, upgrade your skills. That way, then we actually, get to the place where we are not having this situation where low-cadre employees are more qualified than our managers. Because again, you also need that respect where people are looking at you and they respect you not just because of your experience, but they also know you're schooled. That is one of the things
Yes.
that I would encourage employers to also look into. Now, as we bring this to a close, and I think it's a question you asked, Tom, about, how do we advise managers, organizations to build this culture. And one of the things, because I have seen this over and over, and for me, I think it's always very discouraging when we don't have leaders leading from the top. If we are going to have an effective system, as leaders, we must lead from the top. As CEOs, we must get involved. You can't have an hands-off approach and expect performance management to work. You need to get your hands dirty, for lack of a better word. You need to get
Correct.
in there and get the work done. That way, when your people start seeing you are actually involved, you are leading from the front, they will follow. Like children, employees follow what you do, not what you say. If you keep on saying and you're not doing, they will keep on doing what you're doing, but not what you're saying. So let's be on the forefront in terms of leading our people. Of course, the other thing, and we've talked about this, is be very clear about expectations, about values. A lot of times, and Mother alluded to this, where we find employees don't understand our values. So how do we expect them to marry their values with our values? We need to make sure we are speaking about our values on a day-to-day basis for them to be able to see, okay, for me to really integrate in this organization, I need to understand these values and what they mean for this organization.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Zippy. That was a very concise, what's the word? Conclusion to this topic of performance management. You've brought it very well, and I really appreciate Zippy for that. Martha, thank you for bringing the other side of HR, the HR perspective of how performance management and reviews and appraisals ought to be done. Tom, I like the practical aspect that you have brought in. That at the end of the day, there is the theory, there is what probably, as a company, the HR department with the various line departments bring it up. But I like the perspective you've brought in from an operations officer's perspective. Because you, at the end of the day, have to implement these stories. The CEO is looking at you, the board, whoever it is, are looking at you to implement, to make it work. And if you as a CEO can't make it work, then sasa tuko na shida. I like the fact that you brought it in, and I would really love you to come in the coming months to keep giving us from a practical perspective, from a hands down, the way Zippy has put it. Umechafua mikono, you have been there showing people hivi ndivyo tairi inawekwa. This theory, si kuona kwa TV, this is how we place, if it's a vehicle we want to change tires. You're not there with a suit telling people, you're bold. No. You're there rolling your sleeves, removing the tire, showing them this is how the tire is removed, this is how it's fixed back. Because it is through the same that we are able, that actually as a leader, you earn the respect of your employees. I know for me, leaders who I had the highest respect of are the ones who showed me this is how we achieve our performance targets. Our time is really gone. I want to thank you, Martha. I want to thank you, Tom. Zippy, thank you very much for enabling us to bring a conclusion to this particular discussion that we've been having. I thank you, Christine Mbaisi. You've said, I am new in management. The show has built you up. Thank you very much, Christine. Trust me, management, as Martha has said, is about rolling your sleeves. Don't ever imagine that because you're a manager, unaishi hapa juu, kuna watu, there are minions running around. You will have to roll up your sleeves and, and demonstrate. That's the one. Demonstrate what you're talking about. But Tom, thank you very much for coming. Man, I hope we'll get you into our future podcasts. Same with you, Martha. Zippy, thanks for being with us. And to our viewers and to our listeners, thank you for logging in. Thank you for giving us your Saturday morning to enable us bring this topic that we were discussing in January to a close. Next month, we'll begin a fresh topic. Coming next Saturday, from next Saturday, we'll begin a fresh topic. And we hope that you will come in, you will log in, you'll hop in and log in. Specifically, we'll be talking about contracts and how they are managed, especially now everything's about contracts. You've got to understand how contracts are, everything concerning contracts in the workplace. That's what we'll be discussing. But in the meantime, I want to appreciate you all for logging in. This has been the Aurum webinar where we discuss all matters regarding to HR and especially building winning teams. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you'd like to know more about Aurum Consultants, uh, we have our contacts at the bottom of the screen through email, through LinkedIn, through YouTube, through Facebook. You can always get in touch with us even through even you can call us. You can get in touch by call, by phone, or by email, or by Facebook or LinkedIn, and we get in touch with us if you have any questions or any comments, or you'd like to understand more of what we do here at Aurum Consultants, and we would be very glad to do that. But in the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Let us see each other next week, same time, same place. God bless you very much.